evening to Professor Irfan Habib, our honorable guest, respected fellow peers, and everyone present here. The Department of History, Presidency University, cordially welcomes you all to the 6th edition of the Distinguished Lecture Series. Today, we are very fortunate and extremely delighted to have with us Professor Irfan Habib, who will be speaking on the topic Indian Caste System, a Short History. Identifying himself as a Marxist and following the methodology of Marxist historiography, Professor Habib's works span across various fields, which include the historical geography of ancient India, He is a professor emeritus from the Department of History, Aligarh Muslim University. He has also been the chairman of the Center for Advanced Studies, Aligarh Muslim University, from 1975 to 1977 and 1984 to 1994. He was the chairman of the Indian Council of Historical Research during 1986 to 1990 and has also held the posts of the General Sectional President and General President of the Indian History Congress in 1981 and Vice President of the Indian History Congress in 2006. Author of numerous books, monographs, reports, and papers, some of his major books include Agrarian System of Mughal India, 1556 to 1707, first published in 1963. Essays in Indian History, Towards a Marxist Perception, published in 1995, and the more recent, the Indian National Movement Studies in Ideology and History, published in 2011. Some of his monographs include History and the Judgment of the Allahabad High Court Lucknow Bench in the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid case, published in 2010, Man and Environment, the Ecological History of India, published in 2010, and the Indian Economy, published in 2005. He has also edited volumes like On Socialism, selections from writings of Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, V.I. Lenin, J.V. Stalin, Mao Zedong, published in 2009, and Akbar and His India, published in 1997. His works have also been translated into other languages like Urdu and Hindi. We look forward with eager anticipation to today's lecture. Without further delay, over to you, sir.
Dr. Salim Javed, friends who may be listening to me from Presidency University and outside, very good evening to you. The theme that I've taken for today's discourse is the Indian caste system, in which I try to build up a short history of the development and hopefully the decay of the caste system. Now, the first point to be clear about in any discussion of the caste system is the peculiarity of it. No other civilization in the world developed a similar system of sectional division in the population. Nearly all cultures, when they arose before and after the discovery of agriculture, had tribal systems of different kinds. But the caste system, it may have incorporated tribes that is expanded, is not a tribal system of division. It is a peculiar system of a hereditary succession, different positions of every person, man or woman, child. Social status, occupational functioning. Issues of purity and pollution. At the same time, very sharp hierarchy. All of these are combined in the system. It has a history of its own, and in that history, we can see how different aspects of it have grown, have weakened, or strengthened. It cannot be all reduced to one particular aspect. For instance, Louis Dumas' theory of purity and pollution. It's not a matter of purity and pollution alone, which in Hindi or Hindustani is called chut-chat. It's a question of hierarchy, it's a question of inherited status, it's a question of occupational specifications, and also marital relationships. So it's a very complex system that has at least had a history of at least 2,100 years and still remains a very important aspect, although hopefully a declining aspect of our social order, current social order. Therefore, it has an important place in Indian historiography, and it is my purpose today to briefly go over the major stages in the growth of the caste system, in which I shall lightly touch upon some of the controversies. As far as the prehistory of our country is concerned, including the Indus Civilization, we are unable to see evidence which would suggest any type of the caste system, although of course the hierarchical order is there in the large houses of Mohenjo-daro, the poor huts of Indus Civilization settlements at the same time. Even and in the cities, there are large houses, there are very small. It has even been asserted from the heaps of earthenware found that here they had some system of purity and pollution. But that is not certain. Earthenware gets broken very soon, and these might be natural accumulations. In fact, the caste system is not just any system of hierarchy, but a particular kind of hierarchy. Even in much of the caste system, either under the name Varna or Jati. It is in the 10th book of the Rig Veda that the famous hymn of mother sacrifice, there is the statement that from the forehead came the Brahmans and so on. And therefore the four classes are now mentioned. Brahmans, Rajanyas, that is Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. But this does not suggest the existence of a caste system. Taken by its side, It can be placed alongside many other statements in different civilizations of hierarchy. Brahmins being priests, Rajanyas being rulers or warriors, Vaishya from Vish, that is common people. Still Vaishyas have not become a mercantile type class. The common people, Vish, Vaishya, and Shudras, they are the lowest class, the toilers, the lowest elements in society. This statement could have been given any civilization at that time, which all classes would have existed then. Therefore, it is very interesting how from this fourfold division you begin to hear of complexities that lead us to the caste system in subsequent literature. It is in the Brahmanas that you begin to see the elements of what today we call purity and pollution or untouchability. Shudras are not to hear or be present at particular sacrifices and singing of hymns. For instance, the such statement. And then you come to the Upanishads, and there the Varna system begins to be mentioned in what are now regarded as the middle period Upanishads, in which already made in the deeds that one commits in one's life and how they affect your afterlife. That is to say, your own spiritual incarnation. Now, this theory of transmigration, what is now called transmigration of souls, based on your karma, first appears in the Chandogya and Arnakya Upanishads. And in the Chandogya, this is attributed to Kshatriyas, a doctrine which Kshatriyas had concealed among themselves. This is the famous karma doctrine, that based on your karma, you will be born again in this world after some time. And then, according to your karma, again and again. And this karma, or your virtue in this karma, is fixed by what dharma, which is the caste dharma. Now, curiously, this is attributed to Kshatriyas. And now we know that in 6th century BC, both Lord Mahavira and Gautama Buddha, who were Kshatriyas, taught this doctrine, the karma doctrine. Both believed in incarnations. In some Buddhist texts, it is indicated that the same person is not reborn. in Jataka stories, for instance, we see that it is Gautama Buddha being born and reborn again. Therefore, transmigration of souls is a justification for the caste system, ultimately, which is shared, which was shared after 6th century by Brahmanism, as well as the critics of Brahmanism, namely the followers of Mahavira and Gautama Buddha. And as we know, although Jains remained the same country, Buddhism became an international religion, spreading to Southeast, to Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, and China and Japan. There, of course, the caste system is not in existence. So, certainly the universality of Buddhism weakens its association with the caste system. But clearly within India, Buddhism not only existed with the caste system, but as it spread the karma doctrine. And naturally, therefore, it strengthened the major ideological justification for the caste system. When you are placed as a Shudra, or worse still, as a Chandala, outside the caste system, total untouchable, then this is based on your misdeeds in your earlier incarnation. And if you pursue the caste system, if you carry out its duties, you carry out its dharma, then you will improve your birth in the next incarnation. Ideologically, therefore, this was a major pillar of the ideology of the caste system, shared by all the three religions, despite the fact that Buddhism did not include in its dharma the caste doctrine, which is, of course, a major element in it also. But their very ideology is my submission. The ideology of transmigration souls became a common justification for the caste system, which you often find in Brahmanical texts. Now, here I would like to stress that it is not as if caste system suddenly appeared everywhere in India. As I have said, as the title of my lecture shows, it has a history. Clearly, the caste system originated in the heartland of Buddhism and Jainism. That is to say, Magadha and Kosala, Bihar and East. Buddha refers to it. Of course, early Jain texts are lacking, but Buddhist texts quite early from that period exist. And Gautama Buddha's many statements are there. For example, statements that in India you have Varna, the castes, whereas among the Greeks you have only masters and slaves. So this understanding was there. And that the caste area zone was restricted, only restricted by the 3rd century BC, Mauryan times, is shown by the fact that when in 220s BC, around 226 or so BC, Alexander came to what is now Pakistan or Indus Basin, conquered it. Then the accounts of his expedition included many descriptions of the people whom he subjugated. In these descriptions, there is a mention of Brahmins, but not of caste system. Nothing about castes is mentioned, although many details of the social order, how women were publicly sold for marriage and so on, are given by, and even the position of Brahmins as advisors and priests. But nothing about the caste system. But when, within 2 decades later, Megasthenes visits Magadha, he offers a very good description, accurate description of the caste system. Although he speaks of 7 castes, but basically he speaks of 5 castes, in which you can identify Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. And the 5th being the which you identify are the untouchables, the outcasts. So they are there. He speaks of endogamy. And he speaks of occupational according to caste. I'm not going into further details. But this means that when he visited Magadha, he found in eastern India the caste system, as we know it from classical sources. But when Alexander and his associates some 20 years earlier marched through Indus Basin, they did not find it. Now this may well explain why Ashoka's famous inscriptions, the minor rock edicts, the 14 major rock edicts, the 7 pillar edicts, and other inscriptions, and those in Greek and Aramaic, all ignore the caste system. They mention Brahmanas and Shamanas, sometimes in this sequence, sometimes Shamanas and Brahmanas as priests, but they do not include in dharma, in the prescribed dharma, obedience either to Brahmanas or Shamanas, or pursuit of caste occupations, or any reference to varnas or jatis. They are totally missing from Ashokan inscriptions. That also shows, I think, that Ashoka realized that the caste system was a regional affair at that. It did not, in any address to his subjects outside the original area of Buddhism and Jainism, the caste system had no message. And certainly not for Zoroastrians and Greeks in Afghanistan, or for the Kharosthi-speaking people of the Indus Basin, writing people of the Indus Basin, or for any large area. But this is extremely significant that Ashoka's Dhamma, unlike Arthashastra or Manusmriti's Dharma, has no place for the caste system. No mention of it at all. And I think attributed to, as I hope others would also agree, that a caste system, like any other institution, originated in a region and then spread. And it is in post-Mauryan times, I think, that the spread takes place. Because in the 2nd century AD, it is a ruler of the Andhra dynasty who speaks, predecessor, as protecting the caste system, the caste order. And therefore, clearly now it has spread. Interestingly, many rulers are called after their mother's gotra. Gautami Putra, for instance. This is a peculiar feature of inscriptions beginning from 3rd century BC to about 2nd century, both in northern India and in Vidarbha. It suggests to me that rulers were not only claiming that they are maintaining the Varna order, but they also wanted to show that they are good Brahman mothers, even if their fathers' Varna might be doubted. This seems to me to be a particular feature of a system that is expanding. Once the Varna system is well established, then one begins to forget to mention one's mother's growth. But so long as the Varnas were not established, or not clear with dynasties whether they were Kshatriyas or Brahmanas or from where they came, it was very important to establish at least the gotra of your mother. Marry into a good Brahman or gotra if you were a king. This is, I think, a sign of has played a very important role in sustaining the economic structure of society and making the entire system of exploitation a part of the religious dharma. For instance, as Professor Sharma has pointed out, there was an increasing tendency of peasants being pushed into the position of Shudra. Already the Manu Smriti tells us that agriculture is not assignable to the twice born, that is Brahman, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. Vaishyas are regarded as common people. No. Because plowing kills insects under the iron. And therefore, is sinful to now the use of ahimsa doctrine for a total caste purpose. And so this task can only be done by Shudras. And reaching the Chinese pilgrim, who was in India around 700 AD, he tells us that the Buddhist Shramanas condemned cultivation, agriculture, because the Buddha had said, fairly wrongly I think, that plowing the soil and watering it kills insects. Therefore, it must be left with the lower castes, and Shamanas must not indulge in it. Here again you see how the Buddhist doctrine of ahimsa was being used to push the peasants into a lower order. Now and then there was finally the outcasts, the Chandalas and given many other names. If you read their names, the communities who are described as Chandalas in the Manusmriti, which was compiled about 200 AD, something like nearly 2000 years ago, then you will see that most of these communities are what are called hunting and gathering communities. They kill animals, they work in leather, they collect fruits and forest produce. In other words, they live on the fringes of the organized communities. Accordingly, they are to be abhorred, they are to carry out all menial tasks, disposing the dead, clearing dirt, and so on. It was not out of these clans, this class, that the modern scheduled castes were. It is from their toil all over the country as agricultural laborers, as hunters and gatherers, as forest gatherers of forest produce, that Indian economy showed so much. But every possible indignity, every possible punishment was always kept in store for them. If they touched any woman, caste woman, death would be the order for them. This is, of course, given in the Arthashastra and the Dharma Shastra. Now, so there was a downward pressure. The forest folk of all times, denounced by the Buddhists, as Ashoka denounces them, as hunters and killers of animals, were ultimately reduced to the what we are now calling untouchables or elites. And the peasants were reduced to Shudras, that is, outside the three Arya Varnas. They were not the respectable Varnas. Only respectable Varnas were now Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. And Vaishyas increasingly were confined to the mercantile classes. There was a similar denigration of women in the caste system. Although in ancient times, Brahman could marry, he could have a Brahman wife, then a Kshatriya wife, then a Vaishya wife, then a Shudra wife. Bana's father had a Shudra wife from whom he had a brother who had great affection for him. And I suppose an affection within Bana, the great poet of Harsha's time, for his Shudra, for his brother, born of a Shudra. I'm not sure, because I'm not a Dharma Shastra man, what the caste of such a progeny would be. Would the father's caste apply or would the mother's caste apply? But actually in the 7th century we have a case like that. And it was permitted, for example, in the Manusmriti. Nevertheless, increasingly, marriages among the Varnas were frowned on. Once tribes became castes, castes were divided into these four Varnas. The major toiling castes were Chandalas and Shudras. then the classical Indian caste system was established. I'm not going into such details as rise of Rajaputras and so on. Of course, these things took place. Rajaputras are first of all heard of, quite interestingly, from an Arab source in the early 8th century as cavalry soldiers. And indeed, that was how the Rajput caste arose. It comprised cavalry soldiers, horsemen in northern India, and obviously arose to the increasing importance of cavalry in warfare. Now, these developments, of course, took place within the caste system. But the interesting thing is that the caste system begins to be studied from outside. Chong has the first great description from outside, in which we see the classical caste system. And then you have Al-Biruni in the 11th century. Al-Biruni is the only Muslim writer that has a critical view, although very mildly critical view of the caste system. Every society has class divisions, and he says in Islam also there are divisions, but this type of caste division is peculiar. This total hereditary status that the caste system provides is peculiar. But the surprising thing is, when it tells us much about the kind of relations that existed in India between Hindus and Muslims, that from Al-Biruni onwards, Hindus are criticized in Muslim writing for idol worship, but never for the caste system. Today, several people attribute to original Islam a kind of writings, hostile writings on Hindus, in which they never attack the caste system. They attack Brahmins or the idol worship. But the caste system does not strike them as unjust or unequal, because they believed themselves in hierarchy. They did not believe in social equality. Masabat is a word that I have not found in the writings of medieval Muslim theologians. It may be there, but I have not found. And it may be very rare there. On the other hand, I think privately it must have looked to them as a very important institution for their own, but at least for the ruler's own aggrandizement. Just see how the caste system, by suppressing peasants and landless laborers, Shudras and Chandalas, enabled a larger surplus to be gathered by the ruling class. I'm not going into details here because I don't have time, but just see. Therefore, the caste system always favored the ruling class. If they were Rajaputras, they gained. If they were Aljis and Tolaks, Indian Muslims, that is, settled in India, they gained. The nobility gained. And therefore, common sense indicated to all governments that they should not raise the issue of egalitarianism. I should like to, because I've already taken much time, I should like now to pass on to in modern times. But before I do that, I would like to stress that Amir Khusro, for instance, in his No Affair of 1316, immensely praises the Brahmins. It doesn't enter his head that Brahmins justify a system of immense inequality. He praises them as learned men, he praises them for their texts and literature. He praises them for giving numerals and Panchatantra and chess to the world and so on. So clearly, the medieval states were quite at peace with the caste system. Now, in modern times, when India came under British colonial rule, quite naturally the caste system served them as it had served the earlier rulers, the earlier ruling classes. Except that the earlier rulers, whether they were Rajaputras or they were Suljis or Mughals, spent their surpluses within India so that the economy did not lose out. What the English did was that they extracted this amount and took out from the country through the 19th century something which would be around 4 or 5% of the national income every year, totally devastating exploitation. For them also, the caste system was the basis of the agrarian exploitation, the land tax collection. The larger number of landless laborers belonging to the scheduled caste, what we now call scheduled caste or Dalit caste. The Shudra status peasants, the higher caste zamindars, the so-called Pakka loyalists of British rule, and the British land revenue themselves, itself depended on the functioning of the caste system. Much of the zamindar stature, their prestige, came from their caste status. And they were the great intermediaries. But when modern ideas come, when modern British rule came, it couldn't prevent modern ideas from entering. But it is these that first raised questions about the caste system. We have Ram Mohan Roy asking in 1828 how India could become a nation when the primary loyalty of an Indian is to his caste. Remember, it is 1828, too early, nearly 100 years, 200 years ago. And then you have the great Keshav Chandra Sen, whom for some reason we have almost forgotten, who born in 1838, and even before the age of 20, he begins to speak of women's rights and he begins to oppose the caste system. And actually opposes and makes the British agree to the Brahmo Marriage Act, I think 1872, which disregards the caste system. Here, therefore, in the Bengal Renaissance and in similar movements elsewhere, for instance, Jyotirao Phule, 1827-90 in Maharashtra, it is people like them who raise their voice against the caste system and began to weaken it. Now, unlike them, and unlike even moderates, Congress moderates, Gandhiji, in his Hind Swaraj written on a voyage from England to South Africa in 1909, indirectly praises the caste system as a good division of labor, system of division of labor. Throughout Hind Swaraj, he never criticizes caste, but as I say, indirectly praises it, because it is the modern society and its institutions that he is up against. But when he comes to India from 1915 and his first brush with untouchability, very first year, he makes no compromise. Untouchability becomes to him one of the major immediate demands, abolition of untouchability, that he must pursue. And from 1932, he began his Harijan campaign, which I'm afraid is very much misunderstood today. The Pune Pact did no injustice to the what were then called untouchables. He gave to the Dalits, the depressed, double the number of wages, of seats in percentage, which the British government's communal award of August 1932 had given. It even admitted for 10 years a separate electorate. It provided 18% reservation for Dalit members in the Central Assembly, where MacDonald's communal award had given none. So I think it's grave injustice to denounce the Pune Pact and uphold the communal award of August 32 as Harijans or depressed caste Magna Carta. And indeed, even to denounce Gandhi's use of Harijan, which was done in total respect. He meant no disrespect by it as far as the depressed caste were concerned. And in his Harijan program that he began in 1932, he had the greatest blow given to untouchability. And I think that it would be an act of ingratitude today if we do not give that program, that movement its due credit in the assault on the caste system that has taken place in modern. Now clearly, the end of the day today, we find that the caste system has changed in various ways, but it still disunites our people. And caste prejudices are still very strong in the country today. I am dealing with history, I am not dealing with present and future, but clearly, if the history tells us anything about the caste system, we must understand that it is grave injustice to the large majority of the Indian population. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Let me first and foremost, I am really very sorry due to some technical reason I am not able to admit all the participants to join this Google Meet program, but we are simultaneously at the same time available in the Facebook Live. I thank our special guest, Professor Emeritus Irfan Habib sir, for despite his busy schedule, has found time to grace this distinguished lecture series in the Department of History. Thank you, sir, for your very interesting and for informative lecture. Now the floor is open for question uh, and answer session. May I request the audience for their queries one by one by raising their hands if they have. Uh, Professor Sirin ma'am. Deepak Bhatt, are you here? Deepak Bhatt. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so Mary Prachi Jha, are you? If you are, am I audible? Then go ahead with your question. Prachi Jha.
Yes, sir. Good evening, professors. Sir, my question is that one of the main reasons for the growth of Buddhism and Jainism was the inclusion of people from all the social strata, including the Shudras as well as the women. So, did this anyhow led to their upliftment in our society?
Well, as I mentioned, certainly Gautama Buddha in his Sangha did not discriminate between men of various varnas. He also admitted women, as you know. But it has been pointed out that almost all the known monks who have left texts and so on, and whose names are given to us, most of them claim to be Brahmins. That is to say, despite their joining the Sangha, they went on calling themselves Brahmins. And it seems that most of the Buddhists, monks and nuns, were in practice either Brahmins or Kshatriyas. Very few came from, or at all, from the lower castes. So, at least in India, Buddhism and Jainism, both, did not alter the dominance of the caste system within the laity, within the ordinary men and women. And as I've said, it is quite possible that the expansion of the Mauryan Empire, and along with it the expansion of Buddhism and Jainism throughout the country, led to the popularization of the birth and rebirth theory, the incarnation of soul theory, and this therefore provided the ideological basis for the caste system. And therefore, one can't suppose that the expansion of Buddhism was against the caste system, went against the caste system. In fact, to the theory of transmigration of soul, it indeed promoted the caste system, the ideology of the caste system.
Thank you, sir. Rehan Asher, are you here?
Yes, I am here. And first of all, many thanks to listen Professor Irfan Habib, because I am one of his fans from my days when I was in Aligarh Muslim University as a doctor and medical student. I used to listen him frequently in 1998 and 2000 when I was a student there. So my question with Prof, or not a question, just a point of a discussion. Prof, recently in the modern genetics evolved too much that gave insight to the ancient caste and the tribes based on the Y chromosome haplogroups. So when we saw the haplogroups, it's interesting in the light of your discussion that we find even in the many higher castes, when you go on the social construct of Brahmins, Rajputs, or even the Jats, so-called Kshatriyas, they have a admixture of different haplogroups. Some of them are basically Indian and some of them coming from outside. So it seems that at different level, the admixture in the DNA took place, even though social construct of the caste was very strict. So I want to listen a little bit from the Prof, his views on this.
So actually, as I've said, you see, when the original population from where we have all come was seemingly established by 1000 BC, broadly speaking. I mean, there have been immigration since that time, but not on a scale, because what happened before 1000 BC was the coming of agriculture and deforestation and so on. So the important basic population settlements from which all of us have come were established by 1000 BC. Now it has been said by geneticists, I don't know how far it's correct, but everybody seems, among the geneticists, seems to say that around between 2000 and 1500 BC, a large migration into India took place. They might have been Indo-Europeans or Aryans or not, but probably they were, but one can't say for sure. That the bulk of them were menfolk. And coming here, they theory continues to stand and is not rejected by further research, then it means that the so-called Aryan migration was in bulk that of Aryan men, and not as so far has been supposed by Aryan types, men and women both, coming and gradually spreading, say 50 miles in 10 years and so on, till they covered the whole country. Now that then theory doesn't stand. In any case, this doesn't affect the caste system, because the caste system came much later. Rig Veda is probably composed around 1500 BC, 1200 BC. It does not have the caste system in the sense that we understand it. And Gautama Buddha belongs to around 500 BC, Mahavir. So it is between that period, roughly 1200 to 500 BC, that the caste system really took shape. So that's long after the genetic upheaval, as we understand it, took place around 1500 BC.
Aditya Prabha,
Yes, thank you, Prof. So nice to listen. Thank you, Prof.
Yes, sir. Sir, my question to Professor Habib is, if we actually visualize caste as a grouping of human beings, in the way a nation is visualized, sir, we know that when the nation was formed, it spread through print media. Sir, my question is, how in ancient India did a person actually come to know his caste? How did a person actually come to know which caste he belonged to? If we think of caste as a grouping of people, how did a particular person come to become aware of his own caste? Sir.
No, because actually, if you were a Chandala, everyone would call you Chandala, and even your parents. So clearly, you had to understand your position. If you then went very close to an Arya, that is a twice born person, either a Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, you would be beaten. So clearly, this was a matter of knowledge, and everyone had to be clear about what his caste was and what his rights or lack of rights amounted to.
Okay, sir. So like the idea spread like that only, sir. Okay.
Well, the ideas generally spread over the country and over some people who then impose it on others. Obviously, the theory of transmigration of souls took time to spread. But I remember in my childhood, that is 30s and 40s, that many people really believed that they had previous lives and they would have a future life, and that would be better than their present one. I don't know how far this private belief persists today, but certainly it was noticeable in my childhood.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Rahul Basu.
Yes, hello. Thank you for giving me this opportunity of putting a question to Professor Habib. Professor Habib seems to have suggested that the caste system and caste discrimination ultimately serve the ruler, whoever that might be. Question to Professor Habib is that does he think that the caste and caste discrimination were implicated gender discrimination and oppression of women as well, particularly in the colonial context, whether caste discrimination and gender discrimination served the ruling section?
Actually, gender discrimination was so common the world over that when one mentions it in the caste system, one immediately would say, well, Christian women did not also inherit anything. Muslim women had only half, and Islam permitted forced marriages with slave women, concubinage, and so on. So, unfortunately, women were ill-treated all the world over in various manners, that the Indian caste system can't be regarded as a special system of oppression of women. It had the same system as elsewhere. Women had very few rights. But of course, one must remember that in the majority of Indian castes, low castes, widow remarriage prevailed. Among many so-called Shudra castes, it was the rule. And when they moved up the ladder, as the sociologists tell us, through the process of Sanskritization, if a Shudra caste wanted to become, or a part of it become, a Vaishya caste or a Kshatriya caste, then they had to abandon widow remarriage. So clearly the caste system oppressed women in the way that practically every other system, social system in the world did it. I mean, every statement in the Dharma Shastra you find against women, you will find similar statements in legal and religious texts of other civilizations also.
Thank you, sir. So, if you allow us to take 2 or 3 more questions, sir.
Yes.
Sania Chandra, are you here?
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you, sir, for such an insightful lecture. So my question is that the population of the caste system in other religions like Islam, Christianity, and Sikhism, when it comes to India, has provided it a more, I think, pervasive nature. So do you think it has strengthened the caste system? Its population has more strengthened the caste system and has more made it a more a stronger institution, social institution.
Well, actually, I think in several ways, the fact that Muslim community, for example, did not have an institution like the caste system in its own Sharia. It may in actual life happen that a Muslim belonging to Julaha caste cannot marry a Quraishi who is a butcher, belongs to the butcher community. So certainly caste system affected some notions of inter-class marriages. But generally, the fact that you had a community which did not strictly follow the caste system was helpful in maintaining the caste system, I would argue. Because where it was necessary for a particular occupation to be established, and the caste was not available because the castes did would acquire new occupations, but it took time. You have the Muslim community ready. At the same time, Muslim rulers and rich men gained by the caste system, because if you see the inscriptions on the buildings of the Delhi Sultans, for example, you will find many inscriptions by Hindu masons and engineers in their own language, sometimes in Sanskrit, even in mosques. So clearly, both communities gained, Muslims, rulers and rich men, by utilizing the caste system and the cheaper labor that it offered. And the caste system itself by getting flexibility through a community from which new professions could be taken immediately. Although within that community, caste system had certain influences. For example, among the Muslims too, a Kameen, that is a lower class person, normally a Hindu, supposedly Hindu, low class caste who has been converted to Islam, would not be allowed to sit on the same bed cart as a Muslim peasant. So this is too still, I'm told, in Pakistan, that the Kameens are kept away from local jobs and local things in Western Punjab. Clearly, Muslims were affected by caste ideology. But the system, I would argue that the caste system also gained by having a class of people who could step in when the economic need arose without disturbing the structure of the caste system.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Then the next one is Ranajit Chakravarti.
Shagori Mojumdar attending the discussion from Ranajit's phone because I could not end the booking through my phone. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to put in a question. My question is that, sir, the caste system started in a very ancient society, what do you think the reason? Because the caste system survives till day over thousands of years, though the societal systems have changed a lot. You said that the caste system helped the ruling classes in every system, but the entire population including non-Hindus, they support till this day they support the caste system. What is the basis? What is its? How does it survive through different societal systems? Hello.
Sir,
I
I
think
think there is an issue. Sir has left the meeting. I think there is some
perhaps
internet issue or something like that.
due to some technical glitch or the internet glitch, Professor Irfan Habib sir is not.
Sir has
He's joined
rejoined.
back, I think.
Yeah. जी sir. Sir, सर आप डिस्कनेक्ट हो गए थे तो शायद वो
Yes, am I audible?
सर आवाज आ रही. Okay, so may I request to?
Yes, I would like to hear the question.
जी.
If there is any question left, I could
Yes,
to answer that.
Orko Baske Bera.
Shall I repeat my question again? Sir?
Yeah,
please.
go ahead. Repeat.
Sir, my question was that the caste system started in the society, and thousands of years have passed, and societal systems have changed a lot. But how come that the caste system still survives and getting strong, remaining strong? And not only the ruling class, whom you said that the caste system helped a lot, and I understood that. But how come the whole population, including non-Hindus, they have not only accepted the caste system, but they support this system till this day? Society has changed a lot from that ancient times.
No, I think the way caste system functions now is totally different from the way it functioned in previous centuries before independence. The caste system really was a system of exploitation in which its own members believed that they deserved what they were getting. Their own religious beliefs were so strong in the system of transmigration of souls. And actually, it does happen with religion that strong religious belief in a future, in a heaven or next life, modifies one's own against injustice in this world. As Marx said, that is what religion is for. That is what caste system was here for. So, obviously, caste system functioned because those who were oppressed in it also believed in it. Otherwise, it would have broken. And by its very nature, it supported a system of exploitation in which did not matter who ruled, whether a Brahman dynasty or a Rajput dynasty and Rajput chiefs, or Muslim rulers, with Muslim nobles and Rajput chiefs. It did not, or then the British government, the British fiscal system. It did not matter. Whoever ruled, whoever had property gained through the caste system. Now this is of course totally changed. The present caste system, with its surviving injustices as far as women are concerned, for example, or the Dalits, people Dalits by superior classes, cannot be compared with the earlier caste system. The world was totally different. And I think it would be unjust to say that the caste system we are in today is the same as in the 40s. You just can't appreciate it, understand today what caste system in 40s was like. I know when the sweeper came to sweep our house, he used to beg for the leavings we had left in the dishes. And one wanted to leave a larger piece in one's dish uneaten so that he could get something to eat. That thing is now over. So today one can't realize what the caste system was like even in the 40s. And what change it was when suddenly after independence, two orders came. First, that the sweepers would get the same salaries as peons, and that women could be appointed to university positions. Astonishing things at that time. Today one would laugh at the fact that this should be the case. This should be a matter of such importance. But so something did begin with 1947.
Thank you, sir. So we are already running out of time. So only one more question, sir, from Ramdas. Sir, I have a question. In India, in Islamic community, there is a classification similar to caste, that Ashraf and the highest caste Azlaf, and the Pashmanda, the lower bonds, and they did not mingle with each other. And is that similar to caste system? Question mark. Plus, in Arabia, the Quraishi is the highest, without which group no one cannot be the Imam of Makkah Mosque. So, can we say that Islam is free from caste system?
No, the classification that you have made is the modern classification. It's not the Sharia classification. Sharia doesn't have this classification. It does have some. In India, it has a system of kufr, the same economic and social position. But the classification that you are mentioning is not to be found in the Sharia. That is modern social custom, partly influenced by the caste system, partly by economic differentiation. But Muslims have said, they had certain views about intermarriage between communities. Qurayshis and Ansaris would not intermarry and so on. That might have been the result of the caste system. Because I understand that among tribes in Arabia and Iraq, there is no particular bar on intermarriage. And if you read Tarikh-e-Afghani Volume 2, printed from Bangladesh about Afghan tribes in Jahangir's time, you will also see the same case there. So these are influences. But certainly the Islamic law also doesn't promote masabat. It doesn't have. Naturally, a religion looks after the religious belief. It does not reshape economy, or try to reshape economy, which modernists now would like it to be.
Thank you so much, sir. we have already taken the 1.5 hour for Professor Irfan Habib sir, and that's why we are not in a position to take more question. I would like to invite again Srija to vote of thanks to the Professor Irfan Habib sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Professor Habib, for such an informative and enlightening lecture. It was indeed wonderful to hear your insights into how the caste system in India is a peculiar one, incorporating several aspects like social status, occupational functioning, purity and pollution concept, and so on and so forth. And also how various religions directly support the caste system using various ideologies like the transmigration of souls, which the Buddhists use, or by using the doctrine of ahimsa. It was really enlightening to know about the evolution and the development of the caste system over the years, and how quite unjustly the people whose toil and hard work drove the economy were subjected to the worst punishments and pushed to the lowest caste. On behalf of the Department of History Seminar Committee, I would like to extend a very warm note of thanks to our HOD, Dr. Salim Javed, the convener of the Seminar Committee, Dr. Navriz Jadaf Pindi, and Dr. Sajid Alam Rizvi, along with all the student and scholar members of the committee. I would also like to extend warm greetings and thank the respected faculty members of the department, as well as the scholars and students who have joined us today. Thank you all, and please do stay tuned with our initiative. Kindly note that all the lectures are recorded and will be made available over our YouTube channel, and all necessary updates will be shared on the official Facebook page of the department. Thank you and have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Adab sir.
पढ़ लीजिए आदाब दाब
जी.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
It's kind of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prof. Habib. So kind of you.
I got very
Thank you,
ticket from your lecture session.
Bye. Bye.